Hi, everyone, and welcome to our once monthly Sunday talk, other talk within the Nine-Sided Circle. Hey, Mush Talk, I just want to let you know that I'm hearing an echo.
You know why? That's because I don't have my earpiece in.
Technical difficulties.
Yeah.
Not really
Also,
difficult.
I do not have my coffee in, so.
It's a work in progress, huh? All right, so to get started, thank you so much for joining us, whether you're here live. This is our, as I said, it's our once monthly other talk in which we do a Sunday morning in addition to a Sunday evening. And this is so that people around the world can join us at a time that may be more convenient for them. Or if it's convenient for you either way, you can join us twice, and that's perfectly awesome too. We're happy to spend quality time with the people that we love hanging out with each week, including you guys who are watching on the replay and give us great comments afterwards. We really appreciate that. So, speaking of YouTube, the YouTube spiel, if you're new here, it would be so awesome if you might subscribe if you're enjoying what you're seeing, and you can like the video to let us know that. And you can leave a comment with either your thoughts or your questions, ideally relevant to the topic of the video, of course, and we will do our best to respond to each and every one of those to the best of our ability. Anything else I need to add, Mush Talk?
No, that's it.
Yeah, so we'll just keep it brief. We got to do this twice today. So onward to the topic today, which is being the body, a Sufi practice.
Yes.
So where did this come from, Mush Talk, this topic today?
This actually came from a conversation that we had yesterday in our private group, where we were talking about being able to sense parts of the body. And some people have more difficulty with that than others. And I realized after the talk that the reason that it's easy, for instance, for me to find any point inside my body and be aware of it and feel it is because of things that I learned back when I was a young dervish traveling about and learning certain exercises. So I figured we should talk about one or two of those exercises today.
Yeah, and this phenomenon is often called sensory-motor amnesia, right?
Where you don't feel your body. Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. And so we are talking about, you know, kind of what that is and how to undo the amnesia that we've developed over the course of a lifetime, really.
Yeah. Yeah, sensory motor amnesia is interesting because, and while do feel free to chime in on this, and you as well, Shuka, because I know you both know things about this. As life progresses, for one reason or another, you forget how to do things. A really good definition of aging is that you become more and more limited in your movements. And that's why you see very old people sometimes that are all hunched over and they're just, they're shuffling and they're walking everything. Their limitations have become huge. And by and large, this does not have to be the case. It also limits your consciousness. Your body is your primary tool for interacting with the universe. No body, no universe. And without it as a sensory organ, you are limited in the experiences that you can have. And there are, how to explain this? So you have a nervous system. The nervous system provides you with feedback to what's going on physically, or at least that's how we can model it. Your nervous system is capable of more than just that. And for those of you who have practiced the void exercise, we say take your hands and put them like this and feel the space between your fingers. Now, you don't have any nerves there, right? There are no nerves in here. And yet, with just a little practice, you can feel that space. This is because you have the capability of developing the neural connections to extend your neurology into space and through objects. There's an old saying in fencing: "You and your sword must be one." And yeah, this is not metaphor. If I am using something in my hand, I will extend my neurology. I will actually build in what's called the body schema in the brain, a map that includes that object as part of me, so that I can begin to sense it in the same way that I sense my arm moving. It's a real phenomena, and it's easily mappable onto a person's motor cortex. So this is the physical basis of this. Of course, part of the problem is most of the time, I mean, we can be aware of our skin, right? The surface of our body is fairly easy to be aware of. But when we get deeper inside the body, often the only way that we tend to notice it is when it hurts. Pain becomes a primary feedback. And if that is the case, then we might not want to experience the body.
We have some input from Daisy. I'm happy to read.
Yes, please.
Yes, much broader than the definition of sensory-motor amnesia. Quote, a partial or total loss of memory in our ability to sense and move our muscles, unquote. Yeah. We can learn to sense our bones and areas between tissues and muscles, etc., even in the bones.
Yes. You can learn to sense every part of your body and the entire space around your body. I experience that as a real phenomena, experiencing the space around me as connected to my neurology. And there's some advantages to this. I describe to my fencing students, I say, the first thing you do is you connect your nervous system to your sword so that it's part of your body. It is not separate from it. Then you connect your opponent's sword to your nervous system through contact with your blade. And then finally, you connect your nervous system to your opponent's nervous system through that blade contact. And when you do that, you become a masterful fencer. The old treatises talk about this, especially in the Spanish schools. They talk about tacto, the feel of the interaction between two people. And we think of it today in terms of physical flow. And it can get to the point of seeming slightly supernatural, though it's not. In working with my Tai Chi and Bagua instructors when I was a young whippersnapper, I was constantly amazed at the sensitivity with which they would respond to pressure from me. And I could usually determine this by, oh, I'm flying through the air. How did this happen? And that is fairly amazing when you first discover it, this sense of being able to interact with your environment in such a way that you incorporate it into your nervous system. Any questions so far?
We have a thought from Nancy, and then I'm happy to invite questions. Nancy says, people mostly prepare for movements before they make them.
Yeah, that doesn't seem unreasonable. But the movements that you don't prepare for are the ones that are most fun.
So yeah, any questions so far?
Yeah.
Nancy, sure.
Oh, no, that was almost habitual, but yeah, there are a bunch of systems that use surprisingly different ways to get people back in touch with their bodies.
Yeah. Yep.
I don't know if it's worth going into detail now, or I should just write something up for the group.
You can give us like 2 examples.
Okay. Alexander technique teaches releasing the neck and into the back and through the whole body, which can wake up the kinesthetic sense.
Mm-hmm.
Feldenkrais method teaches varied gentle movements that remind you of the ways that you can move.
Yes, and those are both good examples. Another example is what my first teacher used is so in Iran, there is this thing called Zurkhane, which means the house of power, house of strength. And you can look it up on YouTube and see some of what's going on. This is very, very old tradition, probably goes back deep into pre-Islamic times, and consists of working with certain tools and working with simple physical movements. And he was a great believer in this as a methodology. The problem, of course, is that this was limited only to males back in the day. Women didn't participate in Zurkhane, which is a terrible oversight as far as I'm concerned. But to this very day, I still work with the clubs. And I have a bunch of clubs sitting outside my door just so I can go out and pick them up and swing them about furiously, because it creates a form of movement that infuses your whole body if you have good instruction. So that's another example. And back in the day, Sufi orders in Zurkhane were often connected, is my understanding.
So thank you, Nancy, and you can definitely post about those in the Facebook forum if you'd like to as well.
Okay.
Daisy.
Yeah, when I was working with one of Florida's students, Sufi Olaya, he was working with some other archetypal workers, archetypal teachers in South America, and it was a matter of embodying different movements that were characteristic of certain archetypes. And we're talking about, you know, the ancient archetypes that were used in mnemonics for the stars and what we see in all of the things that we're referencing now. And so we'd embody those movements repetitively and or not repetitively, depending on the archetype, and then notice how the challenges, and this happens also in the fourth way movements, the Gurdjieff movements, where there's resistance or whether there's fatigue or just inability to do that movement or challenge to do that movement. And then which ones come very naturally, as easy as breathing, gives us hints to how we individually are thrown, or the culture we belong to is thrown. And that gives unspoken insights that are pretty wonderful.
And I'm glad you bring up the Gurdjieff movements, because that's where we're going next, because they are a contemporary example of this process. Oh, yes. And there is some argument now as to whether or not the movements are outmoded, because they were designed for a particular culture in a particular time, and may or may not work as good in the 21st century. But I don't really have an opinion on that. It's just something that people consider, but not that many people do the Gurdjieff movements. So it's hard to say. I think if one had the opportunity to learn them from a competent teacher, it would be great fun. But they're interesting in that they are specifically designed to move you into areas of sensory motor amnesia in a number of different ways, including not just physical position in space, but timing as well. And Gurdjieff movements are all patting your head and rubbing your belly, in my experience. And as you learn them, you are definitely opening up areas of your sensory motor cortex that have not been developed as much as we would have liked. So, I want to devote the second half of this talk to actually teaching you a practice that will help you get in touch with this. But we need to lay the groundwork for it just a little bit. Interestingly, Noor has put up the how to spell Zurkhane, or one of the spellings. The H is sometimes dropped, depending, like in Turkey, the H is dropped. And this is an exercise methodology that's actually been exported, at least around the Islamic world. You find people in various countries who participate in it now.
So those of you who can't see the chat because you're watching on the replay, the word is also in the description, but I'll spell it for you. It's Zurkhaneh.
Yes.
And you're saying it's the last H that sometimes gets
yeah,
dropped.
the last H sometimes gets dropped.
Yeah, so I'll spell that one more time because I kind of flubbed through it. Zurkhaneh. There.
Yeah. So, yeah, go to YouTube, look it up. It's interesting to see these exercises. The exercises are very powerful, and you'll see people in their 70s who are swinging 40-pound clubs.
Yeah.
It's very impressive.
And it's mostly going to be men, but that does not mean that only men can do this.
Yeah. Yeah, I have this dream of one day opening up a Zurkhane somewhere that is co-ed, or at least teaches women as well as men. The Iranians, the mullahs will probably want to put out a hit on me for doing this, but I don't really care. Shuka, do you have thoughts?
Yes, actually, yeah. I mean, Nancy mentioned Feldenkrais method. It's also like I've been working a lot with it, and this has been my most useful, for me personally, the most useful way I think to get to know my body and to feel it. And when I was thinking about this thing that you said about the extending your senses to the space around you, and it's funny because I'm a dancer, and the choreographer that I'm working for, he used to train with a Buto teacher, which is this kind of Japanese, very intense dance where they, I don't know, it's this
Buto.
very, very interesting
Yeah.
Buto. You can check it out. Anyways, and there's one kind of exercise that he took from there, and it's the only thing we practice as a warm-up for the company. So we just play since years the same game basically. And he calls it pushing discussion. And so you're one person standing with the eyes closed, and there's a basic position, and then the other one will give you soft pushes with the palm of their hands, and you move your body part away from the hand in space in the precise direction. And then when you feel the amount of energy is exceeded, then you slowly return this part back to neutral. But meanwhile, other parts of you get manipulated. So you kind of have to map all the different parts going in a specific direction, space, and returning, and how you can organize your body in this way. And interesting thing is, there at some point you move before you get touched, actually, and you have your eyes closed. At some point you move when it touches the hair of your body, or you start to feel the heat of the other hand. So you become very sensitive. And yeah, I was just thinking about this in regard to what you said about sensing the space around your body, because doing it for a while, like now I've been doing it for 2 years, maybe, you really start to sense these things before they actually touch the border of your skin. So you kind of extend your sense out through your hair, through the hair on your skin, and then even further out in a way. So I was just thinking about this as an example for including the space around you as part of your image.
Definitely.
Of your map, your body maps.
That's a really cool illustration. Thank you, Shaykh.
Yeah, and Feldenkrais' work is very interesting because it seems like it was designed, in part at least, to address this problem. They say that Moshe Feldenkrais was a member of a Gurdjieff group and studied his movements and such, and that may have had an effect. I don't know. But I do know that the work is very impressive.
Yeah, and what I like about the Feldenkrais method, that it's not really a set of movements, but it is an approach how I can investigate any movement in a way. And so I'm maybe the last 3 weeks I haven't done probably a Feldenkrais class, a proper class, but I kind of feel like I'm doing it every day, because whatever movement I do, I use this approach of sensing. So it's kind of I don't know, it feels like a program you install, and then you can, whatever movement you learn, you have this kind of questioning awareness, where you ask yourself about different parts, what they're doing, how to make it easier. So I like that it's a kind of I can apply it to a lot of different things, because it's not just a set of movements, but it's a way of doing and sensing. That's what I really appreciate about it.
Like a way of inquiry into.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. That sounds great. Very cool.
So, how would you start doing this? Will it surprise you if I tell you that it starts with your breath? It is easiest to feel the surface of your body. I mean, you can check right now, you can feel your shirt. You can feel if you're wearing pants, you can feel your pants. You can feel shoes or socks. You can feel all of these contacting your surface. But we want to get inside the body. And breath is the first step to that, because it is movement that you can sense deeply inside. So I want everybody to just take a moment and feel yourself breathing. Don't do anything unique with it. Just feel the breath. And notice how deeply inside your body you can feel it. And if you haven't already, allow your breath to involve your abdomen. So use your abdominal muscles to move in and out. What do you notice? How deeply can you feel inside of your body when you do that? Don't everybody talk at once.
At least to the
Hopefully-
Yeah, Weil and then Nancy.
Yeah.
Okay. At the very least, the musculoskeletal system is felt. The muscles contracting, the chest expanding and descending. At the very least, that.
Yeah, and that's a good start.
Nancy, how about you? Thanks, Weil.
It's about 2 inches in front.
2 inches
You
in
mean
front, like-
outside of your body?
No, I mean inside. Part of the Qigong is being able to feel your whole diaphragm, and I have not made a lot of progress on that. So 2 inches from the front towards the back.
Okay, gotcha.
Thanks, Nancy. Daisy.
So I've done a lot of work on this. I had a lot of injury when I was young. So I always worked on anything I could find, including Vipassana and dance and singing, because that affects the breath. So I go immediately first to the nose, because apparently Buddha had us focus, anything else is an illusion, but you feel the sensation of air when you're breathing right here on the front of the nose.
Harder if you have a mustache.
No, just the skin. And then he could feel it. He went to the point where he could feel it at the molecular level, and then they were going on and off in the blink of an eye. So physicists can describe it today. So I can scan, and I would train to scan as a hypnotist, because I had to heal deep tissue injuries and bone injuries. So I'm going right there. And noticing that no matter what facet I've used in my life to get there, it all goes to the same place. And that, for me, it's scanning. It's being able to more of a faster scanning. And when I can scan 3-dimensionally inside, like the machine scans do today, the sinuses open up, and those areas actually open up and relax rather than tense.
Yeah, that's funny, isn't it? How that happens.
Fascinating. And just, if you're scanning your foot or something to see if you've turned your ankle, it will get warm. The circulation increases. So I'm going right into that area and just finding it powerful. And it's something that I forget. while walking or while eating or cooking.
Yeah.
Yeah,
And
the body scan is a classic technique for beginning to sense this, and lots of different traditions. I don't know if lots. Some different traditions have it, like the Yoga Nidra is in part a body scan.
Vipassana, they'll scan. They get to the point where they can scan. First, it's just half inch, half inch, half inch, half inch.
Yeah.
Then you scan three-dimensionally. Then you scan to the point where you're like jelly. You're vibrating because you can feel the molecules, and then you can go deeper. It just like never ends. I find that fascinating that there's no end to it.
Yeah. Yeah, the Tibetans will do that as well with there's a Tibetan yogic practice from the 6 yogas of Naropa called Tumo, which is the yoga of producing heat in your body. And in order to master it, you have to be able to experience the spaces between your molecules at one point. And yeah, that's another way of getting very, very in touch with all of your body. More complex than we can teach, but it's very, very handy to know this if you live in a cold area.
that's, yes, thank you, Daisy. So Aurash has something to say.
Yes.
Yeah, so going back to what I could sense in this exercise, I could not only sense the belly and the diaphragm, but the intercostal muscles that manage or expand and extract the rib cages. And that kind of expanded to my arms and hands, and that kind of awareness inside to some extent. When in some of the Gurdjieff exercises that I do, that standing right at the beginning, that you become aware of your position, your weight, and kind of builds awareness throughout the body. It kind of reminds me of that activity to some extent, that before you even start the movements, you build that awareness throughout the body before the movement starts. So it kind of increases the intentionality or the attention to movement before you start the movement. So that was my experience there.
Cool. So, next step. I want you to all put your hands together like this, so that there is an empty space between here. Close your eyes and first find your breath. And then allow your awareness to touch the space encompassed by your hands. And that's a weird thing because you have no nerves there, and yet, in a sense, you do. This is where your body schema can create the sensation of being aware of that space. And for some, it's extending out from the hands themselves. For others, it's just sensing the space. And just let your awareness fill that empty space surrounded by your hands. Good. Now we go back to breathing. And I want you to just breathe normally. Allow your belly to move and feel your rib cage. Find the muscles of the chest. the muscles of the back, because you have a back as well as a front. And the moment that you begin to discover what's behind you in your body, it can be revelatory. Now, that sensation that you can find of the space between your hands, I want you to find that within the chest cavity. Feel the space that your ribs surround. You may notice your heartbeat at this point, and that's perfectly fine. And just let your mind encompass this space. So you can go from the surface of the skin all the way to the core, feeling the front, the sides, the back. And while there are many wonderful sensations of the ribs expanding and the intercostal spaces separating, growing larger and smaller, the main area of focus is the space in there. And as you progress in this, you may begin to notice the sensation of air moving in and out of your lungs. And then bring yourself back and notice how that felt. See if you can be in your normal conscious mind here and still have a slight sense of that awareness. Now, one adjunct to this that can be very useful. People, when they think of Iran, they think that it's, this hot, deserty place, which is in part true, but it's also, surprisingly to me, is colder than shit sometimes. It's very cold in parts. And my teacher would have us do this exercise outside on a cold morning so we could actually feel the temperature of the air moving in and out of the lungs. And that made it easier to find the inner part of this. So you can try that, especially those of you who are living in winter right now. I live in California, so we don't really have winter here. But I would do this when I lived back in Michigan and, stand out in the snow and feel my breath.
It's funny. I was about to suggest this because I was in Japan in this public baths where they have very hot and very cold tubs, and the whole atmosphere is like this. I remember going back and forth, that I could feel like an icy breath, and I could feel like, especially changing, having the possibility somewhere to go between hot and cold atmosphere. That it really changed the whole trajectory, that I could feel my air flowing in and out. So
yeah, I mean, you can feel hot as well. I mean,
Yeah.
just thinking of that, that's the more recollectible experience I have of having a temperature inside of me, of the air. But either way, it's just a good demonstration of this phenomenon that you're talking about, Mushtaq, where you can feel that change happening in temperature-wise inside of your body due to the air that's moving in and out. That increases awareness.
Yes. Now, if one were to do this entire practice, you start here. It starts in the heart. Basically, that's why we use the breath, because that's the heart. And we're going to move from the heart outward. So as you would be practicing this, once you can feel the space inside of your chest, you begin to expand it. Like if your body were hollow and you had a balloon inside of it and you were blowing up the balloon, it would begin filling it until it moves all the way up to the top of your head, all the way down through to your pelvic floor, and then out your limbs. And after a while, you begin to sense everything in your body, and not just on the surface, but more deeply. Put your hands like this. You've seen various Sufis do this. The Mevlevis start their turn here and put a little bit of pressure on your shoulders from your hands. Not a lot, just a little bit.
Does it matter which way we do our arms?
Yes, but I'm not going to tell you. So you have to experiment. One way will make this work. The other way will turn you into a toad. So.
I guess we'll see.
Yes. So feel the contact and use that connection, that slight pressure from the hands, to allow your awareness to move more deeply into your body. And this again will help you center your awareness deep inside your chest. And let yourself breathe while holding this position. So how are we doing so far? What, if anything, do you sense? Are you getting any kind of a feel for this? Is this making sense, or is this nonsensical? Makes sense, nonsensical. One of the two.
Gene,
Makes sense. Thank you.
what's that?
I'm
He
saying
was
it helps me make sense. I'm just learning more about the sensory factors, and so I signed in just to see what we're talking about. And I appreciate what's going on. Yeah, it's helpful. Thank you.
Good, thank you. Malou, how are you doing with this?
I always find it rather difficult to actually feel inside of my body. I feel like my skin surface and stuff around, I feel quite a lot. And in the feeling the space between the hands, I can feel it, but then inside, I don't feel like I feel something particular. It's more like nothing.
Well, this requires constant practice. And let me give you a suggestion. When Shuka is back in Germany, because he's also German, that's his home base, he might be doing some classes. If he does, you might want to attend one, because I suspect it would help.
Mm-hmm.
Thumbs up from
Yep.
Shuka. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. The interesting thing is I feel my heart quite strongly. Yeah, but not nothing else particularly. And then the lung thing, I sometimes feel the lungs quite strongly. Yeah.
Sometimes it's a deepening into subtleties through practice.
Yeah.
Like we go with the obvious, the heartbeat, the touch of the skin. And as Mushtaq and others were mentioning, going into you know, like taking advantage of the cold weather outside, sitting outside, you're bundled up, the rest of you is warm, but you're breathing in that cool air and feeling it create a sensation of coolness inside your lungs physically. And it starts with those things, and then you can notice the subtleties of that, and those will draw you deeper in terms of less and less obvious sensations inside of your body. But it's okay if you don't feel anything right now. That's why this is a practice.
Yep.
So there's nothing wrong.
Yeah, and as this is just the tip of the practice, because that's sitting in my alchemical lab here. That's pretty much all I can show you. There are all of these physical exercises that go with this, that put you in touch with your body. You'll see some of them if you look at the Zurkhane videos that are out there. There are physical calisthenic exercises that, amongst other things, involve slapping yourself. Not hard, but moving through the body, touching, creating a reverberation that will go deeper than the surface of the skin. But movement is the key to this. Because when you move, you will, by necessity, cause your muscles to activate. Also, and more subtly, you will cause your tendons to activate. One of the most wonderful things to discover is that your tendons help you move as much as your muscles do. And that's how in what they now call internal martial arts, that's one of the secrets to it, is relying on the tendons to produce velocity rather than just muscular contraction. So muscles work by contracting. That's all they do. Tendons work by being stretched and then snapping back like a rubber band. And that's where you find fudging, which is the energy that can be produced in certain kinds of striking. It comes from tendon strength rather than muscular contraction.
Is that Chinese?
Yes.
Jing.
Fudging. Yeah. Where is Palin when we need her?
I know, I don't know the tones on that, but I'm gonna.
Yeah, neither do I.
So that's Fajing, because it sounds like fudging, you know, like smearing something.
Yeah,
So
it's two words.
Yes.
Jing means energy, and Fa is one of the kinds of energy. Like Chan Su Jing is silk reeling energy, which is another place that you find this. And some of that is, surprisingly, I look at some of the movements that I learned in Iran especially, but also with another Sufi teacher who I will get to in a moment.
Let's just make sure,
Yeah.
Malu, does that
Yes.
feel like an okay place to start? Just kind of feeling the obvious and working from there?
Yeah. I'm also, like, one question that came then is it something specific you feel inside the body? Because I feel like I'm looking for like a specific distinct feeling, because it's not like I don't have a sensation of inside the body, but it's like I'm looking for something.
No, there is no
specific.
distinct feeling that you need to look for. It's not like looking for warmth or cold or anything. It is the feeling of awareness, which to me is a distinct feeling, but it's way different.
So it's
Yeah,
I think
mean,
that's the thing of the, if there's just awareness, there's like, it's to me it's hard to say anything or to say, oh, I feel this and that, because it's just I feel.
Yeah, and that's all we
And
want.
then and then another thing is sometimes, like right now I have quite itchy arms for some reason. I might be reacting to something, and then it's very difficult to take the attention away from the skin sensation
I understand
to like
that.
somewhere else.
And you may
Yeah.
find relief in directing attention to other parts of the body that aren't your arms. You know, just like I know for me personally, I experience a lot of chronic pain. And if I bring my attention specifically to the places where I have pain, it's kind of a double-edged sword. Sometimes I can experience acceptance of the pain when I do that. Other times it's like an amplification of the pain. But if I direct my attention elsewhere in my body in a more diffuse way, it's almost like I can detach from the experience of pain that way. So perhaps, you know, especially with a rash, it's not like you can scratch it and make it go away, but it may bring you relief to practice directing your attention elsewhere in your body. Daisy, I know you typed in some stuff, but you probably want to speak as well too.
Yeah, I don't know if this connects, but it seems to have happened each time. I've done different trainings, but when I was doing the Vipassana and training the sensation, you know, first on the surface and then going three-dimensionally, it was sensation, no sensation. Sometimes I'd get a wet sensation, a feeling of wetness or itchiness or something, but there was sensation. So
Yeah.
we were just looking for on-off sensation, no sensation. And no sensation was still input. So you were still going there. We would train ourselves to go there. So even in the areas where you have no sensation, you're still going there. And that helped, putting my neurocoach hat on there, that helped connect the brain to every part of the body. But and another thing was when I was in meditation, I could spend the first 10, 20 minutes not doing scanning, not trying to sense and having my mind wander, not quite doing the meditation. But the moment I started the meditation, sensation, no sensation, sensation, no, my legs would fall asleep. They'd throb with pain. My foot felt like it was going to fall off. My brain would try to take me somewhere else.
Mm-hmm.
And the discipline was to stay there in the midst of anything and everything. And that was a powerful learning, just getting feedback and going to a place and not in this situation and not letting the mind just wander wherever it was called.
Yep.
But focusing, and then, you know, the foot wasn't going to fall off, but it was amazing every time. It was only when I started disciplining and doing the scanning that, and with anybody else too, that the rest of the body would say, wait a bit, this, what about this?
Yeah, it's kind of like the physiological monkey mind, right? Where it's like needing to latch on to some kind of distraction to pull you out of the practice.
Yes, yes.
Yeah, I find the same thing. It really helps me when I anchor myself in my sensation, particularly I do the arm leg rotation, and wow, that just takes the mind and the attention just me to settles down and improve my meditation. I mean, 100%. It's amazing, but it works.
One more thing is, I find that sometimes when I'm trying to feel inside myself, I have an idea of what I expect to be feeling, and it's not accurate. And this needs to be suppressed so I can actually feel what I'm feeling.
Yeah, instead of
Mhm.
projecting a feeling onto it. Yes. Yeah, that makes perfect sense. Thanks, Nancy. Thank you to each of you.
I think it's also an interesting thing what you say, because I also have this, I think it also can help having an idea. For example, I had this that I started studying, looking at anatomy and actually learning about different parts and shapes of my spine. Let's say I would feel it more clearly, or I would be able to differentiate because I had a concept for certain areas. I had a name for things. I had an idea. So actually the kind of conceptual more knowledge and idea helped me then to specify my sensation, to organize it differently. So and even learning about organs and their placement and stuff, I feel that it can also help, that it can actually help and enrich my my sensory world. So for me, it worked also the other way around, that actually the ideas and not what I should feel, but the concept of what is there in
Yeah.
anatomical terms really opened the door for me to feel certain things that I didn't know, I wouldn't know exist, or wouldn't know their positioning, and yeah. So for me, this was useful actually to learn.
Excellent. I agree. I mean, I think we can have both, right? We can have a map of our bodies, like a poster on the wall that points to where all the organs could be, or flipping through a Gray's Anatomy just to get a picture of what is where, or where we might expect things to be. And we may feel in and find that things are a little bit different than it looks on the poster, of course. But through practice, we figure that out. Through that, that data that we have that Shuka, you're saying, has been useful to you. And at the same time, we also know this phenomenon where we feel a sensation in our bodies. Not all of us do this, of course, but there's a stereotype of the person who rushes to WebMD to figure out why they have a stomach ache and then thinks they have stomach cancer or something, because they've given so much focus to what is there, and they amplify it by giving it a lot of that energy. And then suddenly they're worried that they have a list of symptoms that they've kind of psychosomatically triggered in themselves. And that's a very natural thing. So education helps, I think, in that way. Arash, you have a thought, and then Mushtaq, I want to let you continue.
Well, why, thank you.
Yes.
Just quickly, what I experience is that when I do close my eyes during the experience, it really pulls me in and kind of become very internally focused. And at the same time, I realize that I can do it with eyes open, and even listening to the conversation, I could continue the practice and have a different experience of presence or being centered and listening in a way that I could hear everyone without much of the chatter inside, and also being aware of that internal experience. So it can happen in both ways, like as a way to go internally, deepening the internal awareness, but at the same time using it as a way to be present among the, in the external world and still participating in it.
Yes. Excellent. All right. Please, Mushtaq.
So the last part of this had to do with, so when I was young, I played a lot of Middle Eastern music. And I mostly play, I've been in a couple of groups, the most recent of which was known as Bedouin Bedlam. And we mostly played for belly dancers because that's where the demand was. So we would do other things. So I knew a lot of belly dancers, which is in and of itself not a bad thing. And as it turned out, a couple of the belly dancers I knew were Sufis, and their teacher had trained them to be belly dancers. His name was Adnan Sarhan, and he was from Iraq. And I finally got a chance to meet him when he was in the United States visiting some of his students. And it was revelatory. He was built like a bear, this big, strong, massive dude. And he moved so incredibly gracefully. And the people who he trained in dance were in demand all over the world. The American girls would easily be able to pick up jobs in Cairo and Jordan and places like that because they were just that good. And he used the movements of Middle Eastern dance to open up the body, and the music of the drums especially to open up the other senses, to develop a sense of rhythm. The most important thing that I learned from him was that I have hips, and they can actually move in a number of different directions that I never realized, and that creates power. After that, I had a martial arts school back then, and I would bring in one of my friends who was a dancer like once a month to train all of my tough macho guys in how to move their hips like a belly dancer, with the point of being able to generate power and grace at the same time. And it was eye-opening for them. Americans don't really realize they have hips to begin with. And so it produced some interesting changes.
Yes, and
And
Daisy
movement
says,
movements is the last. Daisy says belly dancing can be seen seriously as a martial art, and often it isn't. And that's true. My dancer friend who would come in, she asked me to train her in the use of the sword, because she didn't want to just balance it on her head when she danced. She wanted to be able to move it as if she knew what she was doing. And she was one of the best sword students I ever had. She was dangerous with a sword because
awesome.
of a number of different reasons. Dancers have more endurance and more ability to absorb pain than anybody else I've ever met in my life. I had a good friend who was, she was a soloist for the San Francisco Ballet until she retired. And she wanted to do a movement practice. So she went to this Kempo school, which had the reputation of being the toughest school in the Bay Area. And she got her black belt in a year, which is unheard of. But when you look at how they train in the martial arts school and how a ballerina trains every day, it begins to make sense. She understood how to do hard work with her body. And I'm digressing a little bit, but it was interesting to discover that. Because when she moved, mostly she floated, unless she was hitting you. So, yeah, dancers also know how to pick up movements quickly. True that. They practice how to learn. So the last part of this, once you begin to be able to find the space inside of your body using this very simple breath technique and using some of these ways to give yourself physical feedback for reaching inside of your body, is that you have to be able to move with it. And again, like I said, it's not really possible to teach that in this milieu, but I will tell you that there's a couple of things that you can do. One of which is go to YouTube and find Yang Tai Chi, the first 5 movements of the form, which is called grasp the swallow's tail. And they're very simple movements. You can pick them up just by watching the video. It's better if you have a coach. If you learn this first 5 movements, you have 99% of what the Tai Chi form wants to give you. And the trick is to do it as slow as possible so that you give yourself opportunity to feel your body moving through space. The first movement, part the horse's mane. Even if you just did that, back and forth, right and left, would give you lots and lots of feedback for this, because it's a full body movement. You're turning your head, you're moving your legs, you're moving your torso, you're moving your arms. You want any kind of movement that you can do slowly, at least to start, and it allows you to feel your body moving through air while your awareness is fully inflating your body, for lack of a better word. That's how it feels to me, as if I am inflating myself with my awareness.
Or filling yourself with your awareness, right?
Yeah, to me, there's a little bit of a pressure, so I think of it as an inflation. But that's me.
Yeah.
But the important thing is, you start with your breath. You start centered in your heart, and you move outwards from there. Once you can fill in your torso, you move up into the shoulders and then the head, down into the pelvic region, and then out the arms and legs until you can hold your entire body in your awareness. This takes a minute. Don't expect to master this in a day. Expect to master it in, say 3 months. Give yourself 3 months before you're really getting to the point where you're doing this. Then learn to move with it. Simple movements. Probably you have some kind of movement that you already do. The requirement is that you move slowly in the first phase of it. And the movement should be large. There are 4 levels of movement in this. The first level is big. Make your movements expansive. The second level of movement is strong. Make your movement strong. Third level of movement is fast. Once you get to the third level, you can begin adding some speed to this. And then the fourth level of movement is light. When you can get to light, you're beginning to master your movement. So big, strong, fast, light.
It's light, I mean, like, yeah.
Say what?
Light as in?
Light as in light, like a feather light.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
And of course, you'll also glow in the dark when you do this. So. So that's basically what I have to touch on, the idea of infusing your entire body so that you can literally feel any point inside your body. And if you think you're imagining, it doesn't matter, because it's all in your brain anyway. It's all in your brain. I feel the space between my hands. Of course, I'm imagining that, but if there were electrodes on my head, they would see a movement in my motor cortex that says, oh, I've built this into part of my body schema to where I can feel this.
So don't be afraid of that.
Yeah. You have imagination for a reason. Use it wisely. So, any questions?
Yeah, any last thoughts?
Mushtaq, in fear of asking a very, very basic question.
Dude, knock yourself out.
What do we do with this?
You
We
learn
work
to live.
hard.
Yeah.
We work hard, we practice, we get the awareness of space inside ourselves, feeling from our breath to our hearts, up to our shoulders, down to our pelvis, and feet and extremities. What do we do with that?
This is actually a very good question, and I'm extremely glad that you asked it, because obviously I have neglected it, because fish in water, basically. When you can do this, you are awake. You are completely awake in your body, and you are awake in your physical environment. You move through your physical environment differently than sleeping people do. And that is the whole point of what we do, is to help everyone who is interested in waking up. In the sense that Gurdjieff meant it, in the sense that the Prophet meant it. So thank you for asking that, because it's an obvious question that needs to be asked and answered. And hopefully that I gave you a fairly decent answer.
You did, thank you. It makes perfect sense now. Thank you, shukran.
Yeah, when I notice it when I'm fencing. One of the things that freaks people out oftentimes is I'm very calm. It's like, here's this person who's going to try and poke me with the sword. Yes, there's a rubber blunt on the end, there's no edge, but it hurts. You know, any day that I come home from fencing and I don't have 3 or 4 bruises was a light day. But I'm calm because I hold myself in this state of full body awareness, and I am just there. And considering that most of my opponents are 1/2 to 1/3 of my age, it helps, because it's like the old guy is not freaked out. What's up with that?
I mean, in my personal experience, I feel like I do my best one-on-one teaching work when I'm able to hold that space.
Yes.
Even I'm not physically doing anything in the sense of a martial art, but I'm still feeling my body as I communicate to another person.
Yeah, it helps you enter into the term we used to use back in the day is uptime. When you're working with somebody else, you need to be in uptime, which is your mind shuts up, your internal dialogue quiets, and you are just there with that person, receiving what they give you and responding spontaneously. And in my experience, all of the great teachers can do this, regardless of what they teach. I'm still working on it.
And all
Cooper
the
has it
great
down pretty good.
performers. All the
Say
great
again?
performers. All the great performers too, right? All the great
Yes.
artists.
Oh,
That's
yeah.
the thing. It all transfers. I work with different artists, and they know when they're in the groove, when they're at that point where the whole audience, anyone around them, is affected by whatever that is. They're inspired, they're open, they're tapping in, and that is when they're tapped into their intuition too, and their intuition of those around them or in their band, and that can generate more insights. It can generate more aha moments. It's applicable. It's practical that way.
Yes.
Yes.
Oh, yeah. And I love working with performers. It's like one of my favorite things. Because they do all, the good ones have that sense. Don't let it go to your head, Shuka, wherever you are. Though he is phenomenal in the way he moves as you describe.
Whatever you do, you're a mathematician, you're an artist, anything, that mastery, it's the mastery, that's it. That what they call mastery is that's tapping into everything.
Yes.
Even a chef, anything.
Oh, definitely a chef, and definitely any kind of artist, a writer. One of my early mentors was a guy by the name of George Leonard, who, amazing man, brilliant mind, and also a high Dan Aikido instructor. And he used that as a definite part of his teaching. It was one of the things that drove home to me the necessity of the body being involved in the work. You can't just be a talking head. So, last questions. Bumit, what do you think? Are we all crazy or what?
I don't know yet. I guess, yeah, what would be my question? I'm interested in knowing why that particular routine, like starting from your chest, going upwards and then coming back down. And the other thing would be, if you were to quickly summarize like I don't know, a daily practice, what would that be? I know we've spoken about like loads of different parts of this practice, but yeah, if you could just.
Both good questions. Why starting with the chest? Because the fact that your chest moves when you breathe gives you a greater opportunity for kinesthetic feedback. That's the main reason that I can tell. I mean, I could give you the whole wrap of you're starting with your heart chakra and everything is radiating from that, but I'm pretty sure that it's because you have the greatest amount of movement through the torso and therefore the greatest amount of feedback. And the heart chakra thing doesn't hurt. I practice this daily. And for me, it looks like I will be sitting here, and before I write something at the computer, I will go through this exercise until I have filled my body with my awareness. If I am exercising, I will do the same thing. Like I'm going to go out and swing my clubs. I will be in my body and swing my clubs only as fast and as hard as I can hold that space. So anybody can swing the clubs furiously, but to move, I'm old, so I mostly work with about 15-pound clubs. I have them up to 40 pounds, but I look at those and go, hey, you're scary. Just stay there for a while. But yeah, moving them through the air requires a lot of awareness, and you can do that with anything. I find it hardest with traditional Western Olympic weightlifting, but I know that it's there because I know people who practice it like that.
You find it hardest to keep it with traditional weightlifting?
Yeah, I find it hardest to just be able to hold that state. I will also use 3 body positions. And I did get a chance to mention this. The first position is standing straight with the arms to the side. And before I do that, I will go through what we call the postural reset. There will be a link somewhere up here to the video on how to do this. So yeah, we will give you that. It's a wonderful exercise that I recommend everybody do who can do it. So I will stand up straight, and then I will hinge forward from the hips and put my hands on my legs just above my knees, back straight. And I will use that as a breathing position. That bend allows you to breathe in a particular way that is very powerful. And then I will drop down onto the floor and put my head on the floor, my forehead on the floor, in what the yogis call child pose, and use that to also be in my body with my muscles completely relaxed, and just spend a little time there. And I will go through that cycle up to 5 times. Standing, bending, kneeling. Some of you will find these 3 positions reminiscent of other things.
So, Amit, I'm not sure if that answers your question. What do you think?
Yeah, I'd say so.
Okay, good.
Great.
Yeah.
Malu, how about you?
I have a quick question. Do you know how much 40 pounds you said, I think, are in
Oh,
kilograms?
Let me see if I can do it quick.
24 kilograms, thereabout.
Okay.
Yeah.
I thought it would be like way more. I thought like 60 kilograms or something.
Yeah, yeah.
But 24 is
It's
Yeah.
18.14 kilograms.
what?
Really?
Yes.
Can you say it again?
18.14 kilograms is equivalent to 40 pounds.
Yeah.
I think you're thinking of a 45-pound Mushtaq.
Oh, yeah. Yep.
The bruiser, the
Yep.
big one.
Yeah,
Yeah,
I got one of those
45.
and it's scary.
45 is 20.41.
Yeah.
Yeah, I won't be swinging that around anytime soon. All right. Does that answer your question, Malu?
Yeah, and another one is, yeah, it did. But the first one I had actually was, well, isn't really a question, it's a thought. When Amit asked why we start with the chest, I noticed that actually in my hands, I feel the inside, like there's a lot of awareness in my hands, I think, generally. And
That would
from
make
that,
sense.
from that, I could quite easily go into, like, I can let it flow up through my arms and then into my chest. It seems for me to be a way easier way to enter that.
Yeah. If that's the easiest way for you to enter that, try it that way and see if it works for you.
Mhm.
And important to realize that the way I do it is not necessarily the right way. It's only the right way for me. And some of you will find certain adaptations to this to be more copacetic. And that's all right, because this is about the result, not the way you get there. This is the many paths up the mountain.
Yes. So thank you.
Some
for
of
sharing
which
that.
involve scaling sure cliff walls, but that's okay.
Can you say that again?
I said that many paths up the mountain, but some of those paths involve scaling sheer cliffs as you go up the mountain.
Yeah, that's
And,
the one I tend to choose in the physical ride.
Thanks, Malu. And Amit, did you have a last thought?
Yes, just to clarify this a little bit more. I guess when we start with the chest, the attention is quite centered around the breath. When we're moving up to shoulders or the head and then down to the torsos, are we constantly kind of also keeping that attention at the breath while moving to different body parts?
Absolutely.
Okay.
You can even breathe into those body parts.
Cool.
Imagine what it would feel like if you were breathing in your chest and your belly and you started exhaling through your legs. What would that feel like?
Maybe a coolness.
Yeah. And you notice, though, that allows you to become more aware of your legs. So learning to exhale through your legs, exhale through your hands, exhale through your arms. You can do all sorts of fun tricks with that sort of thing.
And again, this is putting the imagination to work, isn't it?
Yes.
In a way that is going to give you the benefit of real awareness of your body.
Yeah. And like I said, when you do this, if you measure what's going on with the neurons of your brain, they will be firing as if this is real. And this is not hypothesis on my part. I have actually tested this with EEGs. Your sensory motor cortex responds to imagination pretty much as if it were real in the world. This is why people who practice a particular movement set in their imagination improve, even if they don't do it as often physically. It's a weird phenomenon. And it gives you, one of my Silat teachers said, you know why I'm never upset in traffic? And we were in Los Angeles, and so traffic is an upsetting thing. He says, when I am in traffic and I'm stuck, I just sit there and imagine myself doing my jurus. Jurus are short body movements. And I just do all of them over and over again in my mind, and I'm calm, I'm relaxed. And that was great advice for me.
All right, one last thought from Malou, and then I think we should probably wrap up. What do you think?
Yeah, because breakfast will be rolling up on us fairly soon.
Yes.
Yeah, with the imagination and the awareness of the body, I've noticed when I practice being aware of the body, the actual movement practices I do improve. Like I can not practice a particular skill for half a year, but if I practiced being in my body, it might have improved to last time I did it. So that's quite a cool effect of working on that.
Yeah.
Awareness.
And if you want to know the neuroscience behind this, there's a really fun book called The Body Has a Mind of Its Own. I forget who wrote it. Let me look it up real quick.
I can do it. That is
Sandra Blakesley.
Blakesley, yeah.
Yes.
Sandra Blakesley and Matthew Blakesley. The body
Yeah.
has a mind of its own.
Yep. And I highly recommend it for basic information. It's a fun book to read. And you'll learn some things.
And this ties in with what Shiko was saying about having a body map. That's
Yes.
the subtitle of the book is The Body Has a Mind of Its Own, How Body Maps in Your Brain Help You Do Almost Everything Better. So yeah, we should all check that out if we haven't already. I guess we can
Go to Brady Bunch
go to
mode.
Brady Bunch mode. Yay.
There we are. Yay.
And we can wave to each other and wave to everybody
Bye, folks.
watching on the replay. Thanks for being here. Thank you, new person. It was great to have you. And we will see you later today, actually. Bye.
Yeah. Bye.